ও স্যার জয়েন করেছে? হ্যাঁ স্যার জয়েন
করেছে, হ্যাঁ ফোন করেছে।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, so we can start now. Kaushik, we can start. Okay.
So good morning, everyone. In a moment, we are going to start the 114th Foundation Day program of Calcutta Mathematical Society. So at the very beginning, I will request Professor Aringham Bhattacharya, who is the Honorary Secretary of Calcutta Mathematical Society, to address the gathering and say the welcome note. So Professor Bhattacharya, please start.
Thank you, Dr. Kaushik Ghosh. I heartily welcome you all in 114th Foundation Day of Calcutta Mathematical Society, which was founded by Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee in 1908 on 6th September. And it was a 114th Foundation Day today. So I all welcome our President Sir, all Vice President of Calcutta Mathematical Society, all council members, our speaker, Dr. Devi Prasad Duwari, who is an eminent speaker, and he is a director of MP Birla Planetarium and also Research Center. And I also welcome all the participants on behalf of Calcutta Mathematical Society. Now I must say about some activities of Calcutta Mathematical Society. Many of you know, many of you are the life member of Calcutta Mathematical Society, but those who are not life members or those who are not acquainted with Calcutta Mathematical Society, I must mention some of our activities in a very brief way. So from the beginning of the year, we generally celebrate S.N. Bose about S.N. Bose conference and Ramanujan, a conference on Ramanujan and S.N. Bose. And then we generally, in month of June and July, we have some training program, college and university training program, university teachers training program during June and July. And after that, we generally celebrate this Foundation Day program on 6th September. And in December, we organize an international or national conference. So there are also two academic programs that are NET training program. We generally, from February to June, we have a NET training program, that those who are giving NET exam on mathematics, we train them for 4 months. And again from August to December first week, we again give another NET training program. So in a year, there are 2 NET training program of Calcutta Mathematical Society. So these are our academic activities. And now I must mention something about Calcutta Mathematical Society, that it was the primary objective of CMS was to promote mathematics education and research in our country, right from the primary to the research level. In view of this, CMS organizes regular pedagogical workshops for teaching and learning of mathematics, national and international conferences to make platform for exchange of ideas and concepts in different frontiers of mathematical research among the researchers from all over the world. Now, CMS also organizes the mathematical ability test for the high school students to make them acquainted with mathematics and at the international level. So that is on the Foundation Day. We generally organize this mathematical ability test, 1 year for class 10 to 10 and 9 and 10, and another year for class 11 and 12. So this year we have the advanced mathematical ability test for class 11 and 12. Now, CMS has also the privilege of being associated directly or indirectly with all leading scientists and mathematicians from its very early days. And to name a few, we may mention the names of Einstein, S.N. Bose, who was our past president also, M.N. Shah, R.C. Bose, N.R. Sen, C.V. Raman, Abdus Salem, and many more. Professor Bhatnagar, Ganesh Prasad, C. Kalis, all are associated with Calcutta Mathematical Society during this 113 years. Now we have 3 publications also. One is the Bulletin of the Calcutta Mathematical Society, which is a very reputed journal in the mathematical sciences. And this is the 113th year of publication. Without any hindrance, it is publishing from 1909, just after the foundation year. It has been started and it is going on. So it is the 113th volume is published this year, 2021. It is also UGC listed journal, and we have also applied for Scopus indexing. Now another publication is there, that is Journal of Calcutta Mathematical Society, which is we are publishing it from 2004. It is publishing from 2004, so it is a 17th volume, and it is a biannually. That means in a year it has a two part. One is published in June and another is published in December. But bulletin has six parts. It is a 2 months later it is published. Now another publication is there, that is News Bulletin of Calcutta Mathematical Society. Journal of Calcutta Mathematical Society is also in UGC listed. It is also a reputed journal. Another one is News Bulletin of Calcutta Mathematical Society, which is a publication in online mode. Generally the newses and the news about the conferences in various institutes and over the globe, we give this one. So this is another publication, News Bulletin of Calcutta Mathematical Society. Now the society has a very good library enriched with more than 25,000 books and journals, some which are extremely rare. It has reciprocatory agreement with American Mathematical Society and also under journal exchange program with about 120 countries of Europe, Asia and America, and with about 25 journals from different states of India. There are also some programs of Calcutta Mathematical Society, that is internship program, summer internship program. Some of our university and college students may do some internship program in our Calcutta Mathematical Society, and this year the Amity University has that type of collaboration. 12 students are doing summer internship program, and there are also provision for MOU with colleges and university. Okay, so these are the main activities of our Calcutta Mathematical Society, and the membership also open, and we have a new website, that is www.calmathsociety.co.in. So you can visit this website to get more information about these things. In the next year, in 2022, we are also organizing a SIMPA research school on groups and geometry, that is from January, from 18th January to 29th January 2022. So it is a collaboration with SIMPA, France. So all these are activities of Calcutta Mathematical Society is going on, and we are very proud to have all these participants. There are almost more than 500 participants in this lecture series. So with this, I end this talk.
Yes, thank you, Professor Bhattacharya, for nicely welcoming the entire gathering. So now I request Professor Rajkumar Roy Choudhury, our President of Calcutta Mathematical Society, to address the gathering. So please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
We can,
yes, sir,
we
you
can.
hear.
You can hear me? You can hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, Kaushik? Can you hear me? Okay.
No problem, no problem. You continue to talk.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think that Professor Arindam Bhattacharya briefly but comprehensively summarized the activities of Calcutta Mathematical Society. So I don't have any more thing to add to this, but I welcome all of you on behalf of Calcutta Mathematical Society to this webinar. And you know that, as Arindam said already, that on every 6th September, on our foundation day, we arrange some program. Normally, this program was a lecture on a talk by eminent personality on the history of mathematics or history of science. And from the last 6 years or so, there's an added program which has become very popular. That is a mathematical ability test. As Arindam said, that it alternatively for class 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. And this state is become very popular. We try to actually arrange in stage the questions. We try to set the questions at a very high order, not just normal school questions. And this, after a talk by eminent scientists, this ability test is held. Unfortunately, due to this pandemic situation, starting from the last year, March, all our activities have to be online, even the examination, which was a challenge last year. But I am glad to tell you that we have actually passed this challenge and successfully held online mathematical ability test, which is not a very easy task to do. We had in mind to hold this test in every district. Actually, we started with the government, Department of Science and Technology, West Bengal, and they were very enthusiastic about this. But unfortunately, Corona has the pandemic situation. We couldn't implement this program. But this is the 114th Foundation Day, and we are very happy to have Dr. Devi Prasad Duari among us, who will be the speaker today. He doesn't need any introduction, though we'll ask Dr. Dilip Kumar Ganguly to introduce formally Dr. Devi Prasad Duari, whose lecture has been so popular that we always ask him to give lecture, but sometimes he was not physically very well, so we couldn't arrange it before. But this time, we are really fortunate that he could make himself available, and I'll hand over to Dr. Dilip Kumar Ganguly to introduce Dr. Devi Prasad Duari.
You will hand over, or Kaushik, the program coordinator, will hand over?
It's okay, sir. No problem. So,
No
Professor
problem.
Ganguly, please start introducing.
Okay, with the permission of the president and the coordinators of this conference, I would like to say something about Dr. Devi Prasad Duari. All of you know that Devi Prasad Duari is an important figure. He is a very good astrophysics, not only in West Bengal but in India. And he is presently the Director, Research and Academic of MP Birla Institute of Fundamental Research, MP Birla Planetarium, Kolkata. And he also Honorary Faculty, Physics Department, Presidency College. He did his BSc and MSc in Physics from Jadavpur University and PhD from Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics, Pune. That is right now we call AYUSCA, where you know that Professor Jayantu Vishnu Nalikar was there. Right now he is present. And I learned from Professor Duari that he is the first PhD student under J.V. Nalikar. He was a postdoctoral fellow of Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. He was associated with a number of distinguished academic institutions, including the Institute of Advanced Studies, that Iran, University of Cambridge, UK, and Manchester Institute of Science and Technology, UK. He is a fellow of Royal Astronomical Society and member of International Astronomical Union. Few years back, I read one very interesting article that was written by Dr. Duari, and that was published in Telegraph. And that was written, his article was, as far as I know, Moon and Mars. And this is very much creating much excitement to view this unprecedented celestial event. And I had also chance to listen one of his lecture, and where I was invited at the Sri Sikha Sadan, where our first secretary, Dr. Sanjay Sen, and myself was present there. And as far as I know, Professor Duari also invited to deliver a lecture over there. And Professor Somok Rai Chaudhary was also present to deliver the lecture. And I listened to his lecture, and that lecture provides an intuitive view of stars above us and explains how a series of cosmic accidents have brought us where we are right now. So these times, we have tried many times, obviously Dr. Duari to have with us, but we have not succeeded. But I am very glad that Dr. Duari has gave his consent to deliver his lecture for this time. I hope that his inspiring lectures will be benefited by the researcher, scholar, and also the student present today. Thank you, Professor Duari.
Okay, shall I start my deliberation?
Yes, sir. By this time, we can start, though we are just running fast, perhaps, as per the schedule.
Okay, if you
okay.
ask, I can wait for a couple of minutes, right?
A couple of minutes is okay, I think. By 11:50, we can start then.
Okay, fine.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Sir, I think we can start now.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Calcutta Mathematical Society and Dr. Kaushik Ghosh, who contacted me earlier, for giving me this opportunity on this foundation day of the Calcutta Mathematical Society, of which I am also a member, just a general member. This is really an honor and privilege for me. Today, as it has been advertised in the e-poster, I'll be talking about astronomy and astrophysics. But one of my main intention is to tell the young students who are participating in this webinar. I can see only 56 attendees. I don't know how many of them are students. The importance of mathematics, not only in astronomy and astrophysics, but in all aspects of fundamental science, experimental or observational science, and also in all aspects of our computational science as well. It is not that mathematics and astronomy is related just like that. Mathematics is related to each and every aspect of knowledge, of life as well. Even if you go to fine arts, humanities, you will find application of astronomical methods. Astronomy can be considered as the mother subject of our endeavor to understand nature, to understand the various aspects and occurrences and events that is happening around us. It is the only tool which makes us believe, understand, realize that what are the basic fundamental truth about nature. So in that sense, Calcutta Mathematical Society is playing a yeoman role in trying to inculcate the atmosphere, the feeling about the importance of mathematics in young minds. By the various programs that was mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, one can make out that it is using all its resources, including the human resources available within the society, for the betterment of mathematics education research in West Bengal and also in our country. So in that sense, today's talk, astronomy and astrophysics, though even 10-20 years back, people thought it's just an amateurish subject, but it will tell us how tremendous amount of improvement, development, achievements have occurred in this field in the last half a century or so. And mathematics has always remained as the foundation of that achievement. I will give a lecture by showing a PowerPoint presentation. So if you will allow me for 10-15 seconds, I will definitely try to switch on and give a presentation. Can you see the slide, please? Can you please let me know?
Yes, it's coming. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Basically, it is very difficult in 1 hour or 1 hour, 5-10 minutes to give introduction to a full subject. But I am so happy that today all the participants and the members of the society, they are so learned that I do not have to go deep into the subject to talk about in details. So it is rather a snapshot survey of the topic that I am talking about, and that is why I have named it Concept and Challenges in Astrophysics. Thousands of years back, when our ancestors used to look into the sky, they used to wonder, what is sky? Where is sky? What are those lighted dots we call stars? And is there any connection between the star and the earth? With these set of questions and queries, the subject of astronomy was born. So astronomy can be considered as one of the oldest subjects that human minds have dwelt upon. At the same time, given the huge number of news articles that you get to see in television channels, newspapers, everywhere, you get an idea that it is also one of the most happening subjects of the recent times. Astronomy is a subject which can boast that it has the power to deal with vast expanse of space and time, right? 46 billion light years and 13.877 billion years. That's the largest time scale and the space measure that we can think of in our universe. And it has this tremendous exciting capability, potential of unfurling the mysteries of universal nature. Just to impress upon the importance of the subject, 1901 till 2000, only 3.5 Nobel Prizes were given in most of the basic subjects in science and other fields, in astronomy and astrophysics, or cosmology and general theory of relativity. Only 3.5 Nobel Prizes. Sadly, there are no Nobel Prize for mathematics. There are other prizes which are probably bigger than Nobel Prize, but that is not the point here. But just to tell you, from 2000 to 2020, 6 Nobel Prizes, 17 Nobel laureates were awarded the Nobel Prize in astronomy, astrophysics, cosmology, general theory of relativity related subject and research. Only the last year, Penrose, Gase, and Genzel won the Nobel Prize on their theoretical as well as experimental observational work on black holes. If a young student is inquisitive to know which of the subject areas one should study, and there is an amazing fact under that. Physics, statistics, chemistry, biology, computer science, engineering, and definitely mathematics. Because mathematics, as I mentioned, forms the basic foundation stone of all the science subjects, and especially in doing astrophysical or astronomical research. Because mathematics needed to understand the information of astronomical observation probably comes from physics directly. But there are special needs from situation that intertwine mathematics with phenomena which does not have sufficient physical explanations. And mathematical tools, models, concepts, formulae, they can give us an insight into the physicality of the event or of the object. So these two aspects makes mathematical astronomy a continuing challenge. And obviously we can now make out that we need direct and in a very big way mathematical inputs and innovative methods in fields of observational astronomy, in fields of theoretical astrophysics and cosmology, and computational challenges. The night sky. Thousands of years back, when our ancestors used to look into the night sky, they used to wonder, what is night sky? What is the meaning of those lighted dots? What is the meaning behind them? But they couldn't find an answer. In their desperation, what they did, they chose different parts of the sky, identified closely spaced stars, joined those stars through straight lines, and created imaginary figures. In this way, the whole sky was divided into 88 regions, each region being governed by an imaginary figure, which we today call constellations or Taramandal. Today's young generation may think that these are all imaginary. Why should they know about them or their relative positions or their names? To me, they have not yet lost their physical relevance. Just to give you an idea, suppose a batch of people who have gone for a hitchhiking trip, night has happened, moon is not there in the sky, they have lost your way. If you happen to see the Saptarshi Mandal, or the Big Dipper, as it is called in the Western parlance, take the last 2 stars, produce it into the sky, it will hit upon a single star, and that star is the pole star. The moment you get to know the pole star, you know that these concepts of constellations, positional astronomy, plays even today a very big role in our lives. And that is the reason also that astronomy is so important. As I mentioned, in the last 20-30 years, as if a revolution has happened. Every country, developing, underdeveloped, fully developed, they're desperately trying to build newer and newer facilities, bigger and bigger telescopes, because they have realized the country which will be the first to know the deepest part of the cosmos, or one of the most detailed picture of any astronomical object, probably they will be progressing a little further than others in understanding the deep secrets of nature. Just to give you an idea, in this very inhospitable terrain in the Pyrenees mountain of France, they have built this observatory called Pic du Midi. The cost of building this observatory was $300 million. One of the small islands of the Hawaiian archipelago called Mauna Kea. On top of Mauna Kea, 15 countries have collaborated and built 12 telescopes. The smallest one cost is around $500 million, $50 crore. And that tells you what a gigantic amount of effort is going on globally in trying to understand, comprehend, and explain cosmos. But as an Indian, all of us should be very proud when we come to know that the largest telescope is not yet functioning. The work has started in 2018. It is going to probably finish by 2024 or 25. The world's largest telescope will be called TMT, 30-meter telescope. A telescope with a 30-meter diameter mirror at the heart of it. The cost of building this telescope is so large, not a single country is able to build it. 5 countries are collaborating to build this telescope: USA, Japan, China, Australia, and India. In 2018, our Prime Minister declared in the Lok Sabha that the Indian contribution for building this telescope will be 1,600 crore rupees for one instrument. In Western eyes, India is a poor country. But both in terms of our development, both in terms of our manpower, literate and very technically experienced manpower, and obviously finance for science and technology, we are not really that poor. Not only that, we all know 1915, end of that, Sir Albert Einstein gave a lot of theories. I'm not discussing theories, at least mathematical theories, in front of all the dignitaries of Calcutta Mathematical Society. But he gave the concept that whatever Newton said about gravity as an attractive force is not really the case. He said that any object can produce a curvature because of its mass in space-time. And if two very compact objects are suppose going around each other, circling each other, they will create a ripple in the space-time, which will be called gravity waves. 2015, 100 years after that, gravity wave was detected by 2 fantastic laboratories in US called LIGO, Laser Interferometric Gravitational Observatory. And India is one of the first proud associates of the LIGO project. In collaboration with LIGO, India is building its own gravitational observatory in South India called Indigo Project. It will work in tandem with LIGO. So you can make out that in India, it is now a very exciting time for people, for researchers, for scientists, for young students to work, learn, and do research in astronomy and astrophysics. But one doesn't have to really go deep into the subject very first. Just to give you an idea, as it was mentioned, that I always mention that to love a subject, you should connect it with your mind. And astronomy is one of the best way to connect you to the external world, to the reality of nature. Just to give you an idea that we all know that Earth is going around the sun. But when you ask a basic school teacher, on an average, what is the average velocity of Earth? I have seen quite a number of them scratching their heads. 29.5 kilometers per second. This concept of the relativity, that though we think we are sitting tight at our home at the moment, but we are all, including millions of life on Earth, every second of our existence, we are moving with a velocity of 29.5 kilometers. That itself is an amazing understanding. And as mentioned also in the introduction, I always feel from the very day I have started studying, went a little deeper, scratched the surface maybe of the subject, I realized that the existence of life, the existence of consciousness, the existence of our conception, of our perception will probably come later. Just the physical existence of us is probably an accidental existence on Earth. Life, to me, is a result of series of chance happenings that has occurred and is continuously occurring on Earth and around it. I will try to support my demand on that. You all know, young students, that Earth is going around the sun, but it appears to us as if the sun is going around the Earth because the sky is a two-dimensional surface. And this apparent path of the sun around us in one complete year is called the ecliptic, loci of eclipses. We also know that Earth is going around the sun around an axis, and it goes around itself once in 24 hours around another axis, and these two axes are not parallel. They are inclined at an angle of 23.5 degrees. But a lot of our teachers in our childhood days have failed to realize just because they're inclined and not parallel, you people are sitting at your home, I'm sitting myself at my home, and 780 crore people and millions of life exist on the surface of the Earth. If these two axes are parallel, probably there would have been no life on Earth. So that itself is an accident, the accidental tilt of 23.5 degrees. Now, if I consider the Earth's equator, produce it onto the sky, on the sky it will create a great circle, and let us call this the celestial equator. Because of this inclination of the revolution and spinning axis, these two planes, imaginary plane, the blue-colored celestial equatorial plane and the yellow-colored ecliptic plane will intersect each other along a straight line. And the endpoints of this line are of little importance. The first endpoint is called the point of vernal equinox. The word equinox comes from Latin. It means equal nights. 21st, 22nd, or 23rd of March, sun appears at this point. That day it is equal amount of daytime and nighttime everywhere on the Earth. 21st or 22nd of June, sun comes on the northernmost point, which is also called the point of summer solstice. That day, at least for the northern hemisphere people, it is the longest day and the shortest night. And 21st or 22nd of December, sun goes to the other extreme point, equal amount of daytime and nighttime. And 21st December, sun comes on the southernmost point. That day, for the northern hemisphere people, it is the shortest day and the longest night. So you should understand this continuous variation of daytime and nighttime is occurring just because of this accidental tilt of 23.5 degrees. Even the change of seasons, it is happening because of the tilt. Because sunlight falling directly onto a patch of land, the average energy per unit area which will be absorbed and re-radiated will have a bigger value than the beam of light falling onto a bigger patch of land slantingly. Since if the area is more, the average energy per unit area absorbed and re-radiated will have a smaller value than in the first case. In the first case, the temperature will be more than the second. Then that is the simple reason season changes occur on Earth. But you may ask me that, okay, fine, I understand, but why do you mention it? Do you know if there were no change of seasons, what would have happened? If there were no change of seasons, there would have been no ocean currents in our oceans. If there are no ocean currents in our oceans, there would have been no air currents in our atmosphere. And if there are no air currents in our atmosphere, clouds would not have born somewhere and gathered somewhere else and gave us rain and fresh water. Life would not have been possible because just after Earth was born, it would have been a barren desert. So you and me exist now, not because of our mutual fund LICs, political leaders, or our capacity or our experience, expertise. But one of the reasons is just because of this accidental tilt. Total solar eclipse, one of the most beautiful events of nature. Sun, moon, and earth. Sun's rays falling onto the moon, moon's shadow falling onto a small patch of space, and people staying on that patch of space at that point of time will see as if the sun has vanished. We all know this. But sorry to say, even today in our society, there is a section of people, misinformed people, I will say, who will say, don't do this, don't do that because there is a solar eclipse. Amazing. This is one of the most beautiful pictures one can really see in one's lifetime. The moon just about to cover the very burning red hot disk of the sun. And in a day, as the earth is spinning, you can see for yourself how the shadow of the moon crosses the globe of the earth. This is actual picture. And you see, this is called the path of total solar eclipse. At the highest point, it can be around 950 to 1,000 kilometers wide. It was during an eclipse, a lot of things happened. You all know it was in the Madras Observatory almost 140 years back. A scientist could find helium, presence of helium. That there is something called helium, and it is actually available in sun That was a real discovery, which actually started a chain of events of ultimately which ended into our understanding of what is known as stellar nucleosynthesis. How material, different nuclei are synthesized in the core of a sun. But it was during a total solar eclipse, sun was discovered as a new avatar. Scientists found out milky white radiation is coming out from the surface of the sun, which cannot be seen on other times. When they asked themselves the question, they got the answer, the amazing answer. They found out this charged particle, when they move through the magnetic field of the sun, they produce this milky white radiation. The average velocity of the charged particles are 450 kilometers per second. With that speed, they have enough momentum, enough energy. If they heat any atom or molecule, instantaneously they will break apart, evaporate, poof. That means if I stop my lecture and go out and stand on the sun, the charged particle coming from the sun, the moment they hit my body, within fraction of a second, my whole body should disintegrate. But I'm alive. How? I'll come to that. Tides. Again, a very, very important phenomenon. Why? Because life first originated in oceans. How did it come onto the land? Suddenly grew legs? No. Every high tide, multicellular organism used to get washed ashore. They used to die because water, when they go down, they used to get stranded. But for millions of years, over millions of years, they got the adaptation to stay alive on land, and from there, different animals, mammals, reptiles, organisms occurred, monkeys occurred, and from the monkeys we have arrived. So that we are there, we have to thank the monkeys, but also we have to thank the tides. And if I ask you the question, what is tide? I think everybody knows the answer. It is moon which is attracting the water gravitationally. As a result, water is bulging out. My friends, if you do a simple calculation of G m1 m2 by r squared, you can show sun is attracting Earth 173 times more than the moon does. Then why do you say it is moon which is attracting gravitationally? You should have said sun. Because, my friends, tide is not a force. It is rather what is called a force derivative. Technically, m1 m2 by r cube. And that is the reason, since moon is 384,000 kilometers away and sun is 15 crore kilometers away, moon wins. A lot of our teachers in our childhood days have failed to tell us sun also attracts the water on the earth. You know how much? 47% than the moon does. Not a small amount. And you now all know these tides occur because of the interplay of two forces. Force of gravity, of attraction towards the moon, faced by the water, and again faced by the water, the centrifugal force. And if you do the calculation, if the moon is above me, in this location, geographical location, gravitational force is more than the centrifugal force, water bulges in my locality. But just at that point of time, 180 degrees away from me on the other side of the globe, because the centrifugal force becomes more than the gravitational force, water bulges in that direction. So next time you go to Ganges, Hooghly River and see high tide, you have to tell yourself, at this point of the time, the rivers of Mexico, high tides are occurring. Moon, beautiful picture taken from near the surface, Earth arising. What is moon? According to 98% of the scientists, 99, 452 crore years back, or 4.52 billion years back, a huge ball of rock came and slammed onto the moon, Earth. With such a force, huge amount of the debris got gouged up, material got gouged up from the surface of the Earth and was thrown up into space. It couldn't go away forever because of Earth's gravity. But going to a very vast distance for millions of years, it condensed, coalesced, coagulated, collided, and ultimately has given birth to moon. This theory goes by the name the collision ejection theory. Moon was partly a part of the Earth and partly made up of an object which has struck the Earth 4.52 billion years back. Though there are three other theories, co-creation theory, capture theory, fission theory, but the collision ejection theory, because of certain observations, is the most favored one. It is our time to start our journey in space and time. I think any mathematics-minded people will know why I am using the word time. Because time has a limited velocity of 3 lakh kilometers per second in vacuum. That means the time taken from sun to earth is 8.3 light minutes. to light to come from sun to earth. That means when I'm looking at the sun at any point of time, we should tell ourselves, I should tell myself that the light, the sun, the image I'm seeing, it is the image of the sun as it was 8.3 minutes back. The closest star to our solar system, Proxima Centauri, 4.2 light years away. In the evening with a binocular, when we see that, we will have to tell ourselves, it is the image of the star I'm seeing, which is 4.2 years old. So without going to Science City, spending $15 on a time machine ride, go out into the open with your little ones and tell them to tilt their head. The deeper they are seeing their own past. We don't realize always that looking into the sky is a time travel, not only in space, but in time. The first stop of our journey will be the solar system. These are the true color pictures of the main avatars of the solar system. Sun at the corner, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Poor Pluto has been kicked out. I'll talk about that. Sun. You all know sun is a ball of gas. Take a football, pump in a lot of colored gas, cut open the football. Will the gas inside remain like a ball? It will diffuse out. Then how come sun being a ball of gas is not diffusing out into the sky? What does the scientist say? According to them, 460 crore years back, 4.6 billion years back, a huge cloud of gas and dust was floating in space. This cloud was made up of, in terms of number of particles, 91% hydrogen, 8% helium, and 1% rest other elements. In terms of mass, 74% hydrogen, 25% helium, and 1% rest other elements. The average temperature of this gas cloud was minus 240 degrees centigrade. At this very cold temperature, out of the four fundamental forces of nature, only one type of force comes into play, and that is the force of self-gravity. The force of self-gravity will attract the periphery of this gas cloud towards the center. As the gas goes toward the central density rises. As the density builds up, pressure rises. As the pressure builds up, temperature rises. And starting from minus 240 degrees centigrade, the temperature slowly rose up to 1.5 crore degrees centigrade, 15 million degrees centigrade. At that temperature, 4 hydrogen nuclei, as if they come together, fuse together, and produce a helium nucleus. It's not that simple. 2 hydrogen nuclei coming together, fusing, giving rise to a deuterium, right? A deuterium, another proton or hydrogen nuclei gives you 3 helium, and 2 3 heliums coalesce in a nuclear reaction as if and combines and gives rise to a 4 helium and 2 free protons. So effectively as if 4 protons or 4 hydrogen nuclei to 1 helium nucleus. This thermonuclear fusion reaction, it is very difficult to perform it and control it on labs. Only in the recent times it is happening. China is doing that fusion reaction. Even India, in collaboration with France, is doing that. But most of the time, they use it to explode as a hydrogen bomb. But inside the sun, when in a very regulated manner, as if 4 hydrogen nuclei is getting converted to helium nucleus, tremendous amount of energy gets produced. This energy, when it tries to come out from the central region, it produces a radiation pressure outside. This back radiation pressure, when it encounters, matches, balances, and cancels exactly the inward force of gravity, sun being a ball of gas, remains hanging there for millions of years. Amazing. When you tell your kids that while we're all alive, we feel so important as human beings, right? So much of intelligence, so much of knowledge, so much of fame. But we forget we are alive every moment because 15 crore kilometers away in a ball of gas, 2 opposite forces are cancelling each other exactly every second of our existence. So this thermonuclear reaction producing the energy, this energy trying to come out, producing a back pressure, this back pressure cancelling the inward force of gravity, sun gets its shape and remains there in the sky, and that energy becomes our sunlight and is the only source of energy for life to sustain, to evolve, even to originate on Earth. This basically 2 forces cancelling each other definitely goes by the name of condition of hydrostatic equilibrium. If somebody brings down the sun on your lab, cut it open, inside there are 3 regions. like a watermelon. They cut it open like this. At the very central part, where the hydrogen to helium thermonuclear fusion reaction is going on, is called the core. Then for a huge volume, the energy that is produced at the core freely flows out. That is called the radiative zone. Then sun is very funny looking. From the surface up to a depth of 650 to 700 kilometers, pillars of gas, columns of gas stacked one after another. Heat comes from inside, hits the bottom layer. Gas, when it is heated, rises up, comes to the surface, deposits the heat as sunlight, and continuously goes down and dredges the heat from inside. This is called the convective zone. Outward, the sun is again divided into three regions. The sun that you get to see in the early morning or late evening, smooth, very like a egg yolk. Morning we say Java Kushumang Shantashak, that is called the photosphere. Over the photosphere, in a thin layer, exquisitely pink-colored gas can be seen, and that is called the chromosphere. Chroma means color. And for thousands of kilometers, a milky white radiation called corona. Nothing to do with coronavirus. Corona means crown in Latin. It is as if the sun is wearing a crown. My friend, these are the actual pictures of the photosphere on your right-hand side, on your screen. On my screen, it is left-hand side. Right. So you see, as if cells structure. But if you look deeply, each one is like a beehive, like a cell. Each is a column of gas. As the heat is coming from inside, it is lighted up. The moment it comes on the surface, deposits the heat, and going down, since the heat is missing, it is typically dark in color. The average diameter of each of these cells is 950 to 1,000 kilometers in diameter. This is a beautiful picture of chromosphere taken during a total solar eclipse. Spikes of gas called spicules, which plays a tremendously important role in the solar atmosphere because it drags the magnetic energy from the sun's surface, near the sun's surface region, and dumps that energy 1,000, 10,000 lakh kilometers away from the surface, thereby raising the temperature there to 2 to 3 million degrees centigrade. So the surface temperature of sun is only 5,600 degrees centigrade. Amazing. Beautiful picture of corona. Again, I think one of the most beautiful picture of nature. Sun sometimes becomes very active. You get to see black splotches, kale dabbas on the surface of the sun. Sometimes single, sometimes 10, 20 in a group. They are called sunspots. What are they? As I mentioned, the surface temperature of sun is 5,600 degrees centigrade. At that temperature, gas cannot remain as gas. It becomes what is known as plasma. Plasma has a property. Wherever there is a magnetic field, plasma will try to get deflected from it. On the surface of the sun, very randomly small pockets of magnetism to form. A column of plasma trying to bring the heat from inside. If it realizes that there is a magnetic field, it will not come out straight. It will take the heat away from different directions. No heat comes from this region. It will typically look dark. Typically 1,200 to 1,400 degrees centigrade less temperature than the surroundings. And when we observed sun historically, the apparent movements of the sunspot has told us that sunspots are not moving on their own. It is sun which is spinning. And from that observation, we could make out that sun is not a rigid rotator. It is a differential rotator with on an average 25 days it takes around the equator, up to 35 days in the pole. Beautiful picture taken by Solar Dynamical Observatory. The cost of taking this picture effectively was $1.2 billion, telling us that sun is not an egg yolk. Tremendous amount of explosions are happening on the surface of the sun every second. Thousands of tons of gas are getting thrown out, making beautiful arch and loops, falling back onto the surface. Sometimes they're getting thrown with such a force, they get detached from the surface of the sun and flow past the whole solar system. 2015, one of the most beautiful pictures, very powerful pictures of jets of plasma coming out from the surface and falling back onto the surface. You know what is this cavity size of this arch loop? 3 Earth will go side by side inside that. And we also know that this charged particle, as I mentioned, if it hits you, me, anybody coming from the sun, instantaneously will be evaporated. Poof! But while we are alive, again by chance accident. By chance accident, Earth behaves like a bar magnet. Around the Earth, like a piece of an orange, there is a magnetic shield. This charged particle, they come and slam onto the magnetic shield, cannot enter, flow past the Earth, and we think we are the king and queen of all suns. we think so much important about ourselves, right? Everybody self-important, especially educated people, right? I am educated, that's why I'm important. But educated, uneducated, whatever, big, small, black, white, male, female, we should not differentiate and try to understand, realize the very basis of our existence. It is just because of this accident of a geomagnetic shield that these charged particles are protected and are not hitting us. But the bar magnet, in the north and south magnetic polar region, there are open field lines. These charged particles, they follow these open field lines and re-enter the Earth's atmosphere before hitting the ground, killing you and me on any building or anything. It interacts with their molecules and make them glow. And what we get to see? Auroras. Again, one of the most fascinating natural phenomena that one can really observe. Solar system, how did it form? According to the scientists, 4.6 billion years back, went from the disk of gas and dust. Why disk? Because I should tell you that this spherical cloud of gas and dust, original solar nebula, the word nebula means cloud, it had a spin. So as it was contracting because of self-gravity, because of the conservation of angular momentum, it condensed into a disk. It never became a smaller ball or a sphere. So at the central part of the disk, when the temperature rose to 1.5 crore, sun was born, and in the outer periphery where the temperature is less, gas and dust initially condensed, coagulated, collided, gave birth to very hot spherical objects. For millions of years, they dissipated away the heat, and at least the first four, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, became rocky, terrestrial, whereas Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are mostly made up of gas. This is a collage of all true-colored pictures of the planets. Mercury, Venus, cannot see the surface because it is covered by a thick layer of cloud made up of concentrated sulfuric acid. And 96% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide. As a result, the greenhouse effect is so critical, it being the second planet, it's still the hottest planet of the solar system. Next is our Mother Earth. Let us not talk about her today. Next is the red planet Mars. Why red? It is rusting on the surface. Ferrous and ferric oxide covers the whole surface. But this 2002 photograph taken by Hubble Space Telescope have interested the scientists because they have found white sediments in the polar region. According to them, this white sediment may be the mixture of water ice, dry ice, that is carbon dioxide ice, methane ice, and ammonia ice. According to them, even if a part of it is water ice, maybe liquid water is to flow on the surface of the Mars millions of years back. Now it is totally dry. Or maybe there is even liquid water now below the surface of Mars. And liquid water is synonymous with life. So was there life on Mars? Is there still life on Mars? Big question. Next is Jupiter. 319 times heavier than Earth, the largest planet in the solar system. But the spinning speed is tremendous. 10 hours, within 10 hours it spins once. So they have dragged the clouds of the atmosphere and created these belt-like structures. More than 80 moons. The most beautiful planet, Saturn, 29.4 years it takes to go around the sun once. The ring system makes it the most prominent planet in our solar system. Uranus is, yes, with a ring. Neptune, blue in color, covered by methane-bearing clouds. And our Nandamune, Pluto, with three of its major moons, Charon, Nix, and Hydra. But my friend, you all know, last 10, 20 years, Mars. Why? Because they have found this sort of geomorphological structure on the surface. As if liquid water has cut through the mountainous ravine, it has created the ravines, and liquid water was there. When in 2008, Phoenix landed onto Mars, when it started digging up a little bit, they found a white sediment. Everybody was skeptical. They said it may be water ice, it may be salt as well. But after 4 days, you see in the insect, this whitish pebbles, not to be seen. This is probably for the first time human civilization have found proof of water ice outside the boundary of the Earth. The next picture is more dramatic, taken in the beginning of 2012. It's a sidewall of a crater on Mars. And you see, in the summer, you see these black fingers. Winter, not there. Summer, again, it comes back. Liquid water, very salty, almost drying. But it was found they were floating on the surface. Immediately, scientists decided we have to know about Mars more deeply. Not because of spending billions of dollars of government money, taxpayers' money, but we should understand if there is a microorganisms, virus, bacteria, parasites present on Mars, or on average, around 100 kilograms of rocks come scattered from Mars and land onto Earth. Sitting on a rock, if they land onto Earth, within 6 months to 3 years, the whole life form will go. We have an experience of not of that dimension, but similar coronavirus. So we have to understand whether there is life on Mars. If there is, whether they're helpful for life on Earth or not. That is the most burning questions. 6th of August 2012, Curiosity landed onto Mars. Among a lot of instruments, it had a lot of cameras. It showed us totally dried up riverbeds, which you see in the Chotanagpur Plateau area during summer. Peoples can only occur if liquid water makes big stones roll on them, get smashed up, become smaller stones, and through the rolling through water become smooth. So definitely there was water. And when the whole world was jumping up and down, what to do next? 15th of August 2012, the then Prime Minister of India declared India is ready for the Mars mission. Throughout the world, people started laughing. India's technical capability, nobody thought that it will be a successful it can send the mission to Mars. Even our neighbor China made a statement. The Indian scientists are going to prove themselves as jokers and clowns in front of the international community. But rest is the history. 5th November 2013, sitting atop a nose cone of a PSLV X-25 rocket from the Satish Dhawan Space Center at Sriharikota, Mangalyaan, or Mars Orbiter mission, officially it was called, went into space. And then you know the story. 24 September 2014, 8:02 a.m., Mars Orbiter mission or Mangalyaan successfully entered the Martian orbit. India became the proud first country in the world in its first attempt successfully entered Mangalyaan in an orbit around Mars. I cannot express myself fully what a tremendous achievement that is for Indian science, space science, scientists. But sorry to say, in Kolkata, West Bengal, I hardly found anything happening that day. It was a tremendous moment of pride, international acclaim from almost every country. But, sorry to say, I'm digressing a little bit. Bengali Buddhism, Bengali intellectuals, I'm a Bengali. We think something more. One of the first shots taken from Mangalyaan, see for yourself. The camera the ISRO scientists have made from two-dimensional photography, NASA is making three-dimensional topography, buying these photographs from ISRO at a cost of $1.1 million. It is India, our poor India. It is for us to impress upon the young generation that maybe nothing visible is happening in West Bengal at present. But India is a different story. We are Indian first, then Bengali second. How many of us can shout at the top of our voice openly that we are Indian? And whatever is happening, whatever opportunities are getting offered, as an Indian, we should take it. We are taking it. That is why most of the brilliant minds are going out of the state, right? And we, intellectuals, think what Bengal thinks today, India thinks tomorrow. It happened quite a number of years back. Now, it is just because our attitude, I cannot blame any organization, any person. It is our attitude of a celebration of mediocrity. Because population is more, lot of influx from neighboring country, everybody has to be accommodated. So what happens? An equitable level of opportunities and success spikes, delta function of success is missing. Excellence is missing. Most of the cases. Lot of people will say, what are you saying? So many good things are happening in West Bengal. Papers have said that these scientists have developed that. But what is the percentage of these developments compared to the whole of India? Is it proportional to our population? I think. So, organizations have to come forward, like Calcutta Mathematical Society, to tell them what is the meaning of excellence, not what is the meaning of scoring high marks in the exams. That is important. And it is us who is responsible. Don't blame it on political parties. Don't blame it on the country. Don't blame it on our lack of infrastructure, wealth. Blame it on us. It is, I think, very needed that at this moment we should look at ourselves, looking at the mirror and say, what have I done? Most of the people, they start criticizing everything, everybody around. Have they ever criticized themselves? This is a lesson. We could not do it. Let our younger generation learn about it and always go through a self-correcting motion. This year was important. Three spacecraft reached Mars. Amal from United Arab Emirates, Tianwen-1 by China, and obviously the very well-advertised Perseverance and Ingenuity, right? And Perseverance have landed and sent us amazing, beautiful photographs. Close your eyes and think that you are here, 65, 70 crore kilometers from Earth, on an alien planet. 95% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide, hardly any water, because not much magnetic shield. So solar radiation has stripped off the water millions of years back, and you are looking at the surface. Amazing. And obviously, one of the first achievements of a drone helicopter being flown. Till today, 11 times successfully it has flown. Not only that, with a small instrument called MOXIE, it has been successfully able to generate oxygen out of the prevalently present carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's a very big potential for human habitation and exploration. ISRO, I am proud of it. Don't talk about Chandrayaan-2. Chandrayaan-2 is successful, 95%. Do you know that? Don't talk about what happened, this GSAT satellite that was being sent. It could not go up. Do you know what is the success rate of ISRO in spacefaring? Close to 89, 88%. And what is the success rate of NASA? 72%. Before criticizing, take the information first. A lot of people, even in, say, Mangalyaan, give you an idea. Whatever you say, sir, 460 crore rupees spent on a mission called Mangalyaan by a country which cannot feed 27% population 2 square meals a day, BPL, below poverty line. What is the big use? To them I say, my friend, do you know that how much money was spent on Diwali crackers, fireworks in the same year? 5,000 crore. And Mangalyaan is 4 rupees per person at that time with 115 crore population in India. We lose our perception. Right. Saturn, one of the most beautiful planets, 384,000 kilometers wide is the ring, but only 1 to 100 kilometers in thickness. In size comparison, Earth is just a tiny, almost a speck in the whole ring system. And it is made up of ice crystals and pebbles. How come ice crystals and pebbles are not getting dissipated, keeping the shape and size going around Saturn in a very orderly manner is a big question. And I know one of my students did his dissertation on this ring stability, equilibrium of the ring system, and came out with a nonlinear solution. In a fractional dimension of 2.2, you can produce the stability. And this is one of the most beautiful pictures. If you're sitting near the ring of Saturn and then you meet an alien and he asks you, who are you? Very bad situation. How will you tell who are you? Because there is no other human being. You have to say, sir, me, 780 crore objects are people like me, millions of other forms of life, all rivers, ocean, planets, hills, mountains, forests, all, is compressed, condensed into this white dot, the pale blue dot as it is called, Earth. Actual picture of Earth from the ring system of Saturn. But it does fantastic to your ego, right? What we say generally, I have done so many things. I have sat through so many seminars, so many students, so many wise words. Everybody remembers me for my work. But from this distance, you have to say, excuse me, I am a micro dot in that dot. That is my importance. Right. 1801, Italian astronomer Giuseppe Piazzi discovered a piece of rock typically 900 kilometers in diameter between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter. Named it Ceres. People thought a new planet has been discovered. But within a couple of years, three more, Pallas, Vesta, and Juno, each around 500 kilometers in diameter, were discovered in the same region, going round the sun. And starting from 1801 till today, thousands and thousands and thousands pieces of rock, 10, 5, 15, 20 kilometers in size, has been discovered going round the sun between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter. They are called asteroids. This is a true representation of NASA. Here, each green dot is a discovered asteroid. Think of the poor astrologers, right? Angutis. 9 planets are 9 fingers, sun, 10 fingers, Angutis, 10 fingers. What will you now do? All of these are going around the sun. And according to astrologers, they can affect your life. They can stop your pension or stop your payment or stop your increment. Or you can lose out your loved ones. What to do? From tip of the hair to the tip of the toe, you have to wear angutis, right? And every day you have to do a Shanti Shastran or something like that. Amazing. Whatever. These red dots are called Apple asteroids. Their orbits intersect the orbit of Earth. That means they can come and bang onto the Earth any point of time. If you ask me what is the probability it can happen, well, it can happen now, just now, as I'm giving this lecture. Right? Have you done your will and all that? Finalized your future? Because it can happen now. It can happen 10 lakh years later. It can happen 10 billion years later. Nobody. That we are alive is an accident. Enjoy life with that feeling. Don't take yourself too seriously. You are not that important. Not even to you. We think we are important. And they have landed a spacecraft called Hayabusa 2 on an asteroid called Ryugu because they think there is a lot of mineral deposits on the surface which could be used for the development of the human civilization. And you see, it is not a solid rock, loose gravels bound together by gravity. And it has collected some sample. And last year, December, it has sent that sample on a parachute onto Earth, landed in Australia. And that has been collected by the Japanese scientists and now getting analyzed. Comets, let us not talk about that today. Are there 9 planets in the solar system? Because starting from 1998, they started regularly discovering bigger and bigger objects in the outermost periphery of the solar system going around the sun. Size was close to the size of Pluto. Will they be called planets? And this question became tremendously critical when in 2003, November 16, another object was discovered in the outer far-flung region of the solar system, much, much beyond Pluto, which is size is larger than Pluto. At that point of time, 1,600 crore kilometers away from sun. And it takes 557 years to go around the sun. Bigger than Pluto. What will you call them? So, a lot of debate, a lot of dhamela. In 2006, in the International Astronomical Union General Assembly, I was there. It was almost close to fist fights. Scientists. Ultimately, this is science. By voting, it was decided to change the definition of the solar system. They said, from now on, there will be 8 classical planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. And a new class of objects or nomenclatures called dwarf planets. Pluto, largest asteroid Ceres, and this newly discovered in 2003, whose official name now is Eris, they are called dwarf planets. In 2015, 2 more dwarf planets have been officially recognized by the highest body, International Astronomical Union. I'm an associate of that. They are called Haumea and Makemake. NASA started a slogan at the beginning of the century, follow liquid water, apart from Mars. Yes, Europa and Enceladus, by their structure, by their features, and by hot water coming out of at least Enceladus, which is a moon of Saturn, scientists know that inside there is a huge reservoir of warm liquid water. And they're going to send a machine called Cryobot 2024. By 2029, it will drop onto Europa and Enceladus, drill through the 10 to 15 kilometer thick ice on the surface by laser, and ultimately when this liquid water take photographs and send back to Earth. Another 10 years, you will all come to know, don't be proud of life. Life is a universal process, not particular to Earth only. It is everywhere. We have not discovered it. Out of the solar system, actual pictures of the sky. Why we don't get to see it? Because the problem is with the human eye. Right? Human eye has something called perception of vision. Within 1/10 of a second, whatever amount of light enters through our pupil, falls on the retina, the optic nerve immediately takes them to the back of our head to create an image. Our eyes cannot integrate light like a Sicily chip. I think somebody's microphone is on and a lot of banging noises is coming. And if kindly somebody whose mic has accidentally got on, can be muted. Or if you can stop the banging noise. Right. So we cannot see these colors, these dots of light, billions dots of light, because the problem is with our eyes. If our eyes were like a Sicily chip, looking in a particular direction in the sky for 10, 20, 25, 30, 100 hours, you'd have seen almost every dot in the sky there is a star. And huge gas clouds. Are all the stars like the sun? Answer is yes and no. Why yes? Because most of the stars are burning hydrogen to helium at the center. Why no? Because stars come with different initial mass, different surface temperature, and different chemical composition. In terms of mass, stars can come in the range of 0.08 to 150 times the mass of sun. Mass of sun is 2 into 10 to the power 30 kilograms. In terms of surface temperature, stars can come in the range of 50,000 degrees centigrade to 1800 degrees centigrade. And it was a legendary woman 110 years back at Harvard Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory who with naked eye observed and analyzed the spectra of 240,000 stars. She took 10 days of holiday in her 7 years of research. And we, every 1st January, oh my God, so many Saturday and Sundays on holiday. At teaching. Right? Mary Jump Cannon. She classified the stars according to the surface temperature and chemistry as well. 100 years, science has totally changed. Nobody can touch her classification. The hottest surface temperature star should be called O star, next star, B star, A star, F star, G star, K star, M star. Sun with a surface temperature of 5,600 degrees centigrade is just a nominal G type of star. And obviously stellar spectra. You know how difficult it is? Each star has 22,000 and upwards absorption features. A researcher has to understand, decipher each of the absorption lines. Tough. You have to be very clever for astrophysics research. Meaningful. Not Bhagalpur University kind of research. Meaningful research. Because it is the only signal that comes from the star is the signal of light. You cannot bring down the star from the sky, cut it open, put chemical, test it, smell it, and say, aha, this is this. Only the signal of light, how difficult it is. Looking at a photograph of your friend or somebody, can you tell what is his age, what is his mass, what is his temperature, what is inside him, what is the chemistry of his body? No. But don't forget, looking at the image of a star, you have to answer all these questions. And those of you who are interested, there are 4 very fundamental, very simple equations, first order differential equations to understand sun. Mass conservation, hydrostatic equilibrium, energy transport due to radiation, and energy generation. But you cannot solve them because of the very critical boundary condition. They will blow up. So you have to put it in a computer, crunch, and bring out a model. That brings me to the life and death of stars. Stars are born from interstellar clouds of gas and dust. In the sky, there are regions where one can see these clouds and also star formation processes. Real picture, true color. One of these clouds can produce 1,000 solar systems. Don't mix it with the cloud in our atmosphere. See for yourself. Beauty, the secrets of creation, challenges that the sky poses to us, to our intellectual mind. You see these dots over here at the top? See these dots? Each dot, you know how big they are, each nodule. Inside, they have a fully formed solar system like stellar system. Think of the size. Think of the challenge. 2.5 million pixel photograph. Each pixel gives you an answer. It takes an average researcher 3.5 to 4 years to understand the whole image, one image. Astrophysics is tough. You have to be very, very clever, very, very intelligent. Intelligence doesn't come in your birth. How you apply your acquired knowledge is the proof of your intelligence. If you think your knowledge is only going to the coaching classes, going to SAR, getting some, some suggestions, or reading only 10 chapters out of 20 because they are important, excellence doesn't occur. You have to understand that. There is no shortcut to success. And research is one of the biggest things. He will show me a lot of examples. Oh, that he is doing research, but also having a good life, having fun, going to the mall every weekend, going to some resorts every 1 month or 2 months, going abroad at least once in summer in Europe, having a car, happy, successful, and scientists. But hang on, how much work, how much energy you are putting, pure energy, purity of purpose of trying to do research, not copy and paste, not changing one parameter of something somebody has done earlier and saying, this is a new result, PhD. It doesn't work. To you, it works because I told you it's a celebration of mediocrity that is happening. Right? See for yourself. Columns of dust absorbing light, that's why they look dark, pushing through the interstellar medium at the tip because of the ram pressure. The temperature rises, the gas cloud gets zapped, and temperature rises to 1.5 crore new stars are getting born. If you are born, you have to die. Stars die differently in different ways depending upon their masses. Stars whose initial mass is 1 to 8.8 times mass of sun, our sun, it is burning hydrogen and helium. How much? How many? How long? If you do a small calculation, you can show for another 5 billion years or 500 crore years, sun will be burning hydrogen to helium. After 500 crore years, all the hydrogen in the central region will be converted to helium. Thermonuclear fusion reaction stops, outward pressure stops, sun, gravity is there, so sun will shrink. As it shrinks, the temperature rises inside because of the gravitational contraction. Not only at the center, but in the outer periphery and the outer envelope region, the temperature rises and slowly reaches 1.5 crore, the temperature that was earlier at the center. At that temperature, the remaining hydrogen in the shell region starts fusing and gives birth to helium. Huge amount of energy. Gas, when heated, expands. Sun will start getting expanding. Expand, and how big it will be in a small calculation you can show. Within millions of years of that, sun will become so big, it will touch the orbit of Earth. Much prior to that, Mercury, Venus, Earth will all go inside the sun. That's why the insurance company doesn't give you a premium for 500 crore years. So what is going to happen? Nobody is going to stop that. Oh, we will not be there, whatever. But the inside at that point is contracting, and ultimately the temperature inside rises to 10 crore degrees centigrade. At that temperature, 3 helium nuclei fuses together, produces a carbon nucleus. Again, thermonuclear fusion reaction, energy comes out, the central contraction halts. But within very fast, all the helium gets into carbon. Since the initial mass is 1 to 8 times the mass of sun, it is not enough that at that point to produce more pressure to raise the temperature to 1,000, 10,000, 1 lakh crore degrees centigrade. So the inside remains a hot ball of carbon in the sky, very bright dot, will be called a white dwarf. By that time, the outside has become so big, it will slowly start getting detached from the circular region, from the central region, and it will be called a planetary nebula. The word nebula means cloud. True picture. For the last 30 years, but I do extremely negligible amount of true research, believe me. I'm sorry to say, I'm sad to say that. But when I was doing much more, mostly before joining the planetarium, because planetarium administrative job, these, that, public outreach has taken out too much of mine. That's an excuse, but at present I do not very actively do this sort of research, but we were the first group 20 years back which showed that you see the shells, the star is actually pulsating at that phase, trying to keep the thermodynamic equilibrium, right? And also the hydrostatic equilibrium. And each pulsation releases a shell of material. And we show tremendous amount of shock are generated. And we could show, mostly through a simulation created by me, 24,000 line Fortran program, that we can produce molecules just behind the shock front because of a process called adiabatic cooling. And when he sent the paper for initial publication, it was rejected, saying that your procedure, your physics is correct, your simulation is correct, but nature does not follow computer simulation. That was the scientific answer of the referee, 3 referees. At least 2 of them said that. But luckily, within 1 year of our paper, a spacecraft sent by NASA, by Netherlands, Holland, Infrared Space Observatory, discovered 68 of the 72 molecules that we have predicted, and in almost the same abundance. So tremendous amount of happiness for us. It was a shock-induced physico-chemical process, tremendous amount of mathematical, physical and chemical modeling, and almost gave a boost to this subject of astrochemistry. Synthesis of molecules in space and interstellar material. And these are the molecules that we predicted has been found, experimentally verified. Most of them are organic, telling you life can happen anywhere in the universe. Prebiotic material of life gets produced by the stars themselves, any star. Next type of death, stars whose initial mass is 8 to 25 times the mass of sun. One after another, fusion reaction will happen, hydrogen to helium, helium to carbon, mass is more, pressure more, contraction more, temperature rises. So slowly carbon, oxygen, neon, magnesium, silicon, one after another elements are produced. Ultimately, iron is produced. Iron has the highest binding energy. You cannot pressurize or put temperature to 2 iron nuclei to fuse. Anything higher than iron does not fuse, right? It goes for fission. So the inside of the star it takes a peculiar shape, very core, like peels of onion. Hydrogen, helium, carbon, oxygen, neon, and ultimately a ball of iron. When this stage is reached, thermonuclear fusion reaction stops. Inward pressure is still there because gravity you cannot escape from, and they all rush toward the center, gets a tremendous recoil kick, and it's actually an implosion, but though it is called a supernova explosion. At the point of this collision of these surfaces, the temperature rises to trillion degrees centigrade, and starting from iron 56 to all the naturally occurring elements up to 94 mass number gets produced in a fraction of a second. Since they're produced in a fraction of a second, they cannot be produced in huge quantities. They are called rare earth element. And believe me, my friend, each atom of iron in your body, each atom of calcium in your body, if you ask where from they have come, from your food, where from in the food? Maybe if I'm a non-vegetarian, I've eaten the goat from the plant. If I'm a vegetarian, from the plant. How in the plant? From the soil. How in the soil? Down deep, there are mines, from there it is percolated up. How in the mines? Because the only elements that were produced at the initial stages of Big Bang are hydrogen and helium, mostly. Little quantity of beryllium, boron, deuterium, but forget about that. Hydrogen and helium. So each atom of hydrogen, each atom of iron, calcium, potassium, sodium were produced atom by atom inside the core of a star millions of years back, which exploded and threw this material out into other interstellar medium from where new stars are born. Planets have picked these materials up and they have entered my body. Again, humility. Be humble, because you, me, everybody, because of the supernova explosion, for understanding, we understand we are all star children. That is the biggest commonality we have. Instead of our ego, I am best, I am better, I am good. Let us grow together. We have all same origin. Nobody has given you the right to think you are superior. If you are superior, prove it through your work, not through your attitude or through your language or through your misuse of power. Through your work. Let other people say you are great. Then you are great. You see, both the cases starts from gas cloud, star forms, again the star dies, gives rise to gas cloud. But in between, there is a tremendous synthesis of chemistry, more complex material. And from that concept, when people started asking that every material, apart from hydrogen and helium, naturally occurring element, has been produced in an astrophysical scenario, when they start asking the question, what is life? Are we alone in the whole universe? Answer is definitely no. But what is life? It seems the prebiotic material for life, not aliens, not God, Eric von Daniken, but prebiotic materials of life came from space. Meteorites, bombardments, right? Space dust, comets, they have deposited this prebiotic material. And from there to the atmosphere, the chemistry has evolved. And life suddenly sprang up. Because it has been very difficult, starting from 1954, to produce life in the lab. It is absolutely difficult. Life in the sense, organic life. Right? 10 minutes time, I think I have, if you allow me. Third type of death of stars, mysterious kind. Stars whose initial mass is 25 times the mass of sun. There, even the supernova doesn't happen because it's so massive that ultimately it will shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. If a spherical object or any object shrinks, ultimately, where it will go? It should be a point-like object, right? But all the mass, all the energy concentrated in a point-like object, so it should be infinite density. Mathematically, it is called a singularity. It will be so dense, it will try attracting material from its neighborhood and gobble it up. Not allow light to come out of this. You cannot see them, black in color, and as if a hole in the space-time, black holes. So, but still, it's a science fiction-like description. What are black holes? To understand that, you have to again go to this fantastic personality. Fantastic. I have given this photograph showing that a scientist, supreme scientist like Albert Einstein, he didn't have much ego in that sense. He used to all have fun. He didn't thought, oh my God, if they take this picture, what will happen to my reputation? My importance will go. No. Through his general theory of relativity, basically, which says the curvature of space-time is created by the mass, and more massive an object, more is the curvature, and it will tell the other bodies how to move in that curvature, smaller bodies, how to move in that curvature. Instead of Newton's laws of gravity, Newton's concept of gravity, the geometry of space-time giving rise to gravity, with one of the most elegant equations of our present times. G mu nu equal to kappa T mu nu. G mu nu one side is all the curvatures present in the universe produced by the mass and energy, which is expressed by, on the right-hand side, by T mu. And kappa is universal constant 8 pi g divided by c to the power 4. So, now in this space-time, if I put that dense singularity thing, what will happen? Visually, it is not like this, my friends, but just for visual perception. It is as if there is a hole, there's a funnel going down, almost infinite potential kind of thing. Nothing can come out of this, not even the neck region. Once you cross this neck region, it will not come out. That has given us this concept, at least for a static black hole, there is a region of imaginary boundary or event horizon. If you cross it, say bye-bye to reality. And even light cannot come out of this region. Simple relation for a static black hole called Schwarzschild black hole of the radius of this event horizon, 2gm by c square. You can obtain it from finding out the escape velocity of light. But there are other types of black hole. Kerr-Newman black hole, right? Reisner-Nordstrom black hole, whether they're charged, spinning, all sorts. I'm not going into detail. But if you do not see, how will you prove that they are there? By something called an accretion disk. In case of a stellar black hole, a star which has become a black hole, if it is a part of a binary star, it will attract material. The gas will come out, but it has to lose the angular momentum before falling into the black hole. So it goes round and round, and through tremendous friction produce copious amount of X-rays. So if you can observe nothing, but X-rays are coming out, there is a black hole. But black holes can be of different types. Low mass stellar black holes, typically 3 to 10 to 15 times the solar mass black holes. Intermediate stellar mass black holes, 50 to 150 times the mass of sun, and something called supermassive black hole. Nobody knows still very clearly how supermassive black holes, which are found at the centers of galaxies, they are there, right? But we know last year, this fantastic person, Roger Penrose, I had the opportunity of meeting this brilliant mind twice in my lifetime. Absolute excellence. But absolute fun loving. That is the one of the things that struck me like anything. When he came to for ICCC conference in Ahmedabad, and after that, when we were having a chat after dinner, and he said, I'm going to go after this. Goa is fantastic. You know, traveler's paradise. Oh, I have brought my friend. Age difference is tremendous. But he was so proud of it and happy. That tells you they know how to enjoy life. Not in the sense of going to a mall or going to a biryani house and having a lot of biryani. No. Enjoy life in the truest sense of the meaning of the life. And these two people, Reinhard Genzel from Max Planck Institute in Munich and Andrea Ghez. For 15, 20 years, they toiled hard, used hundreds and hundreds of hours of observation. And through observation, they said there is a presence of a supermassive black hole, 4 million solar mass at the center of our galaxy. And they found it by the motion of the stars around a point which they have named Sagittarius A star. The motion is so fast, right? And going around such a small region of space, it must be a black hole. And 3 years back, we all know, supermassive black hole at the central part of an giant elliptical galaxy called Messier 87. 9 billion solar mass. The ring, the shadow of darkness. You are seeing this ring, but why this circular donut-like thing? Actually, the back part of the ring is gravitationally lensed, and you are seeing it like this. So one part is approaching you, one part is going away. Blue shift, red shift, bright, dark, bright, dark. That's why. Fathomless universe, billions of galaxies. And in the last, this is a nice picture, a tabletop picture of the universe. Don't think these are moss or whatever, the roots of plants. These are large-scale structures at the farthest surface of our observation. Beyond that, we cannot reach Big Bang to see because everything is opaque. Only 380,000 years after the Big Bang, universe became a little transparent. But now we know it's a cosmic wave. Each light dot here is 20,000 to 100,000 crore stars, a galaxy. Imagine our potential. Within 25 to 30 centimeters of our brain, we can see this, understand this. That is human intellect. Right? And obviously the hypothesis, still I'm saying it a hypothesis. Nobody has proved it beyond doubt. That 13.77 billion years ago, universe started, well, almost from a singularity. The first concept came from Stephen Hawking about the singularity thing. About the starting from a primordial atom or something, long time back. Lemaitre, Friedman, Einstein, De Sitter, they all have talked about it. And obviously the question of dark matter and energy. But coming back, just 2 minutes left. Mathematics forms the foundation. Starting from the initial days of observation with a small telescope, which object is where, what angle, what distance in the sky, spherical trigonometry. But as you go deeper and deeper in calculations, in modeling, in theoretical understanding, special functions, special integrals, tensor analysis, even spinors, twisters, Riemannian geometry, a very great depth knowledge of topology, even differential geometry, different statistical tools and methods, mostly for error analysis, and sometimes innovative mathematical models. Ashtekar variables, those we know. He's trying to prove quantum gravity, and he has built his own mathematical tool, Ashtekar variables. So, mathematics remains the backbone. And that's why it is so relevant for Calcutta Mathematical Society to understand, to support, to motivate young minds to the depth of space. Telling them, instead of saying oohs and ahs, try to explain them. And mathematics is the tool. The foundation should be tremendously high. Getting 100 out of 100 in class 10 is not a proof that in your later life you will be mathematically a genius. Lage raho. Universe has opened up. See, our consciousness, our existence, our understanding, our feelings, everything is guided by the beautiful picture of the universe. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for your very illuminating talk, and we are very much indebted to you for just having this and experiencing this particular wonderful talk. So I think there are questions, and at this very moment I can find out one person. I think Modik has raised his hand, so I just request him to just place the query directly to the speaker. Yeah, Shoma Mollik, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, put your question to the speaker.
Sir, what will be with the stars which initial mass is less than 1 or 2 solar mass at the end of their life?
See, they are basically, when I didn't have the time, they basically become what is known as a brown dwarf or black dwarf. And they are lost from our sight because they are not emitting any light. Right? Our sun will become a brown dwarf or a black dwarf. And some people have suggested that under tremendous amount of temperature and pressure, carbon gets transformed to diamond. So there can be 10 to 15 kilometer piece of diamond, the remnant of a star floating in the sky, making all the ladies on earth very jealous. 10 to 15 kilometer piece of diamond, not 1 piece or 1 carat, whatever. Thank you.
Okay. And sir, what will be with the mass 8 to 25 solar mass?
They end up at supernova explosion. The remnant becomes what is known as a neutron star. A spinning neutron star becomes a pulsar. If the neutron star has a mass more than say 3 solar mass, it becomes a black hole. Same with the white dwarf. If their mass is more than 1.44 solar mass, called Chandrasekhar limit, they also become a black hole.
Okay. And sir, string theory really exists?
You are asking me the question, say, differential equations, do they exist?
Okay.
These are tools to understand nature. We do not know whether they exist or not. Nobody knows for sure. Right? Sorry. Next question, please.
I just get one question. Are we living in a simulation? This kind of question has been texted here.
First of all, the person who has asked this question has to tell me what is his way of differentiating between simulation and reality. Simulation and reality. Somebody says we are living in a quantum cosmos, quantum sort of domain, probabilistic rather, not quantum, I should be probabilistic. So nobody knows, right? These are theoretical understanding, which can be supported to some extent by mathematics, but cannot be proved beyond doubt as reality.
There is one more question I can find. It is being asked by Namonita Sarkar, yes. She is asking, how did living matter originate from non-living matter?
Very good question. At this point of time, it is deep philosophy. Somebody adds a little bit of sprinkle of religion. Somebody adds a little bit of probability. But from matter to life, from notes of music to the actual music, how do you construct? Nobody knows.
Yes, there is one more question from Ranjana Goswami. She is asking, do all planets or planets have
Sorry, your voice is getting.
do planets have axis or is it parallel for the most?
No, they're tilted. Some are even tilted almost 90 degrees to sun, right? Because initially there was so much of collisions. The Earth tilt is because of the formation of moon. Something close to the size of Mars came and banged onto it, so it got tilted like this. Similarly, a lot of other collisions have this tilting is different. I think the connection, there may be some problem.
So can I ask, sir, may I ask the question?
Yeah,
there
sure.
is a question from Rishabh Karmakar. Are we living in a Hubble sphere?
I do not know what do you mean by Hubble sphere. I don't know what you call a sphere. We live in 4-dimensional space-time. Can you show me by hand what is a sphere look like? What you are giving is a 2-dimensional surface. So, understand that is what I'm trying. When you say Hubble sphere, you should understand what sort of space they are talking about in terms of the mathematics. And then we can try to answer the question. Right? That you should understand. Next question, please.
There is one question. I don't know whether it is relevant to this topic. Sir, can you provide a guidance on career choice after doing MSc Math?
See, MSc Maths, you should give the SSC exam and wait for results to come out and wait for you to get selected and properly get a job as a school teacher. Or you can do a little bit of PhD, research. Nowadays it is necessary for getting into a college or a university. Or you can dedicate your life to research. Do a lot of research, try to stay in the research institute. Right? And go abroad like anybody else 10 times a year, which I almost did when I was doing research. Even nowadays, not 10 times, but a lot of times by invitation, not spending money from the Indian government. And have fun. Because research jobs now are the most highly paid, believe me. So if you're from the materialistic point of view, one after another, school, college, research. If you don't get it, a lot of people, I'm sorry to say, not you, even after MSc applies for a probationary officer's banks exam. Right. But it should not be. If your aptitude is such, if your interest is such, try to stay focused. But you have to be good. That is the first prerequisite. You have to be good in your studies and understanding. There is no shortcut. And there is a risk if you try to say, I will remain in research, but you cannot produce much. You are not good at that. Then is a risk of losing everything. So first build yourself up to be excellent. Then go for research. Thank you.
Yeah, I just lost the connection in between. I can see that
right.
Two different persons were raising their hands. I think. Now, Krishnanjan, so I request Krishnanjan, can you please raise your voice and ask the question?
Sir, what are parallel universes?
Sorry, what are?
Parallel universes.
Parallel universes are mathematical construct of universes which are different from us. Even the physical laws may be totally different. There is no real connection in terms of light travel time. So they're mathematical construct till now. But YouTube, you will see imaginary pictures of bubbles floating around. They are imaginary pictures. We do not know whether they are this sort of universes. But mathematically, yes, they are proved. Next question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, if there are not much questions, I think.
Yes, sir. There is another question. There is a question in the why the planets in the solar system does not collapse.
The planets in the solar system does not collapse because there is some internal energy that is inherent there, right? In case of Earth, there is a huge amount of magma, molten lava, which is producing a lot of things, and it is a solid object, so it cannot collapse. Like a fluid, it will not collapse, right? The spin, the motion, everything goes into, adds on to, it's what is known as achieving the hydrostatic equilibrium, right? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There is no question.
Okay, last question. Last question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Sir, I tried to connect with you many times in the app, and I hope that you know also me.
Okay, so what is the question, please? This is
okay.
Not
So I am going to
social
tell
media discussion. Yeah.
Okay, sir. I am going to now tell my question. The questions are related to before the career and after the career, respectively.
Career in what?
So I want you to say that what should we do actually from class 10 up to your level so that we get our career. That means the astrophysics career.
My friend, you have to study. You have to study relevant subjects. There is not a single subject. I said it earlier. Physics, chemistry, maths, biology even, computer science, engineering, not all, but most of the computer engineering subjects, and mathematics. Any of them can ultimately make you reach the goal of astrophysics, studying astrophysics. Right. But you have to study well. You have to choose it. You can join pure science, get a BSc, MSc. You can join an engineering, get a BTech or BE, and also do research, meaningful. One of my closest friends, he is a graduate BTech in mechanical engineering from IIT Kanpur. He did his PhD in quantum cosmology, and is at present one of the most renowned professors in the world, my contemporary. So it's all up to you. And keep your minds open. With internet and Google, you can find a lot of information, apart from doing WhatsApp and Facebook. I do not know whether you do it, but internet nowadays becomes synonymous with Facebook and WhatsApp continuously. But try to use the internet for your benefit. That's what I'm trying. Thank you. I think I have taken the last question. Let us round it up.
Yes, sir. There is one big question. This from Ankur Banik. The planets revolve around the sun in an elliptical path, so its velocity is changing, and therefore we can say that it is an accelerated motion. And sir, according to the Maxwell, in accelerated motion, energy decreases. Then the planets should also lose their energy. So, sir, my question is that why the planets in the solar system doesn't collapse?
Or collapse to the center, because it is the balance. It is the balance between two forces, right? The centripetal and gravitational attraction, centrifugal force also comes into play. The inertia, or in a much basic sense, the inertia of motion itself, circular motion. So everything comes into play. And whatever you're saying about elliptic orbits and all that, there is change in the shape of the orbit. There are precisions of the orbit, but it remains elliptical because that remains more stable. Actually, it should be circular, right? They are. But they are circling the common center of mass of the sun and the planet. So to us, it appears as if the sun is also going through this jiggling motion, because the center of mass on any planet is inside the sun. Okay, I think we should stop. Because I have another lecture, another 1 hour from now. Right.
So I think let us complete this issue, and we just thank Professor Duwari for his wonderful speech. And this is my proud honor to just say the vote of thanks on behalf of Calcutta Mathematical Society. So first of all, as I mentioned, let me thank Professor D.P. Duwari for his very wonderful speech, and also kindly giving his consent to deliver a talk here, despite his very busy schedule. And it's our delight to experience his erudite talk. And thanks a lot to him to just make this foundation day a very special one by this manner. I'd like to thank Professor Rajkumar Roy Chaudhary, the President, Calcutta Mathematical Society, for kindly giving his address before this August gathering. I'd like to also thank Professor Arindam Bhattacharya, the Secretary of Calcutta Mathematical Society, for this welcome note. Thanks to Professor Dilip Kumar Ganguly, Honorable Vice President of Calcutta Mathematical Society, for introducing the speaker. And I'd like to thank also Dr. Bablu Vishwas, Joint Coordinator of this program, for taking a tremendous pain to host this entire program and coordinate the entire program brilliantly. And thanks due to all the Honorable Council members and stakeholders of Calcutta Mathematical Society for their august presence and continuous support. And finally, I'd like to thank the participants for their vibrant presence, which really makes this program a grand success. So thank you, everyone, and have a nice day.
Okay, thank you, Kaushik. So we can leave now, and our next program will start from 2.
স্টুডেন্টরা আছে এখানে?
হ্যাঁ আছে, কিছু আছে। ঠিক আছে, আমরা তাহলে লিভ করে যাই এখান থেকে, স্যার।
ওকে ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ।
না বাবলু, তুমি বলে দাও কটার সময় ওরা খুলবে?
হ্যাঁ, 2টার সময় আমি সব ইনস্ট্রাকশন দিয়ে দিয়েছি সবাইকে।
আচ্ছা।
ঠিক আছে
স্যার, আপনি কি বলতে পারেন যে 2টোর সময় আবার কোন সাবজেক্টের উপর হবে?
আর কোনো ওয়েবিনার নেই, এবার ম্যাথমেটিক্যাল টেস্ট আছে। তুমি যদি অ্যাপ্লিকেশন করে থাকো তাহলে সেইটা দিতে পারো। তাছাড়া আর এইখানে প্রোগ্রামটা আমাদের শেষ। এই প্রোগ্রামটা ওয়েবিনার আমাদের আর নেই, কোনো টক আর নেই। এরপর আমাদের যে প্রোগ্রাম আছে 2টো থেকে, সেটা শুধুমাত্র ম্যাথমেটিক্যাল টেস্ট, এবিলিটি টেস্ট হবে। এটা যারা অ্যাপ্লিকেশন করেছে অলরেডি তাদের জন্য।
স্যার বলছি, এই ফিডব্যাক ফর্মটা কখন সাবমিট করব?
এক্ষুনি করবে।
আচ্ছা,
ওকে, এখনই সবাই করবে, পরে আর সার্টিফিকেট কিন্তু পাবে না, এখনই করতে হবে। ওকে
ওকে স্যার।